I was now telling Sandra Wu-san that I want to date her, and I told her who I really am, and she said, "My god, you're one of the richest men in the world. I can't believe I didn't recognize you right away. My god, I'm sorry about all those times I asked for your help." And I said, "It's fine, Sandra. I wanted to find out what it was like to work for someone, and with someone special. I don't know, really just wanted to work a regular job to find out how hard it is. Turns out it's not really that bad." And she said, "Yes, I definitely want to date you." And I smiled big and I said, "Good, I'm glad to hear it. I've also been meaning to tell you that I am also a master of martial arts. I mastered Drish Shastra. It's an ancient martial arts, and it's also one of the oldest and hardest martial arts to learn, and I mastered. Have you heard of it?" And she said, "You would need to train for centuries to learn that martial arts, either that or you would have to be an absolute fighting genius or a genius in general to master that." And I said, "I'm actually a super genius. If you would like, I could show you something that no martial arts masters have ever shown you." And I said, "Do you know what ki is, Sandra Wu-san?" And she said, "Yes, it's the life force energy in every living thing." And then I said, "What if I told you that energy alone could be harnessed as a weapon, not just in the body but outside the body? And I have mastered this power over the years." And she said, "Oh my god, show me." And she suddenly grabbed me excitedly, and I said, "I will teach you everything you need to know, but I want to spend more time with you romantically, of course." And she said, "Sure, whatever you want." And then I went with her back to her dojo and I helped her clean up and everything. And then she said, "Could you show me now, please?" And I said, "Sure, Sandra." And then I said, "So think of your life force energy as a living thing flowing through you like water, and then imagine it outside your body." And then I said, "Meditate on what I told you." And then she got into her meditation position and I did the same, and an incredible white energy surrounded my body, and Carolyn saw it, and I was floating in mid-air in the meditation position. And Carolyn said, "Oh my god, Sandra, look." And then Sandra saw me and she said, "Bruce, what is this?" And I said, "This is my true power and the powers you can achieve, but it will take time and physical and spiritual training." And then for many hours she tried to pull out her ki energy and it flickered around her, and she said, "I can't do this, it's impossible." And I said calmly, "No, it's not impossible. Concentrate, Sandra, don't give up, you can do this, and don't force it, let it flow through you peacefully, don't pull against it, find what brings you true peace and happiness, set your mind on that, Sandra, and then release your powers." She started to calm her mind, and then I felt it, her ki was rising slowly, but it's there. And she said, "It hurts, Bruce." And I said, "Don't fight it, you can do it, try to keep it steady. This is the source of all mystical energy and power, and it's tied to magic itself. It will strengthen your spirit 1,000-fold or even 1,000,000,000-fold, but it takes time and training, Sandra, and you could break your mortal limiter just as I did." And she said, "My god, I can't do this, this is causing me too much pain." And she said, "How do I shut it off?" And I said, "You let your rage take over again, but that could also fuel the fire. You opened the floodgates and you must close them." And I said, "Just distract yourself with a thought and that's how you shut it off. Think of me sexually." And then she blushed and said, "What?" And then her powers shut off, and Carolyn said, "Wow, I want to learn that." And she said, "Come on, do me now, Bruce." And then Sandra said, "No, Carolyn." And then I said, "This power feeds on your life force energy, your own spirit, Sandra. So you must strengthen your body and your soul, Sandra. You must train your body every day and meditate. You tapped into the powers on your own. I didn't have to help you much, I just guided you, and you can do the rest. You just need time, but it will be painful for a while." And she said, "Thank you, I feel stronger than I have ever felt before." And I said, "That's the side effects of having strong ki. The body will get much stronger too. You might even have super strength now." And I said, "Go on, test it on your punching bag over there." And she punched it and it exploded, and she said, "Wow, that's what it does." And I said, "Yes, and so much more." Then I powered up a ki blast in my fingers and I shot a target with it in a bullseye, and I said, "This is the true power of ki energy, the power to destroy with your own energy." And she said, "Incredible, you're a living miracle." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, but so is every living thing. And what if I told you that I know a technique that could absorb the life force from every living thing?" And then I showed her my spirit bomb and I said, "This is called a spirit bomb and it can vanquish all evil."